Howdy Google Ads fans, and welcome back. In this lecture, we're going to talk about how to use your website's navigational structure to start thinking about how you want to build out your Google Ads campaign structure. Remember, in the last lecture, we spoke about the differences between campaigns and accounts and ad groups, and it's important that certain types of things are going to be segmented out at the campaign level. Here we are at poppin.com. This is a website which we'll use as a template, and imagine we're building out a campaign, a Google Ads search campaign for Poppin, and we don't know where to start, right? They sell lots of different types of office furniture and supplies and different categories and all sorts of things, and we want to figure out how to separate out our campaigns. So let's go over and take a look at how they look at their navigation. So I'm going to hover over furniture. So I see different categories. There's desks and benching, adjustable height desks, office chairs, stools, so on and so forth. Under office supplies, I see the same thing. Desk organization, notebooks, planners, corporate branding, design services, all sorts of things that we want to do. Now, the first thing to realize is that you're not always going to start off advertising all your services and all your products. This is a mistake I see lots and lots of people making. It's unlikely that every single product and every single product category and every single service that you offer is going to be able to be advertised profitably on Google Ads. Sometimes the clicks will be too expensive, and sometimes the conversion rates will just be too low. So you want to start off thinking about the core group of services that either your best sellers, they are the most important services, they're the services that you have the highest margins on, and start with that group of products, product categories, or services. You could also consider loss leaders. Loss leaders are when you have a certain product that might not be profitable, but you're willing to either break even or take a little bit of a loss because you know that this service ends up generating sales for a follow-up service or a certain product or a certain product category like desk accessories. If they're bought, they might not generate profit on that first initial sale, but you know from your own data that typically those people will come back and buy more later on. So that's something very worthwhile to think about as well. Loss leaders, and you have to build that into your lifetime value of your customer calculations, and we'll get to that, of course, in a future lecture. But in this case, there's two different ways that are obvious to me that you could start off building out these campaigns. One is I could have my campaign set up at the top level categories of this navigation. So I can have a campaign for furniture, a campaign for office supplies, a campaign for corporate branding, and a campaign for design services. My ad groups would then potentially be the subcategories of that primary navigation. So I'd have under my furniture campaign, I might have an ad group for desks and benching, an ad group for adjustable height desks, and if I click into adjustable height desks in my ad group, I'll see that I have these products and these product pages. You want to also think about what page you want to send that traffic to. So you don't want to be too broad, and you also don't want to be too specific. So if I have adjustable height desks and somebody's searching for adjustable height desks, standing desks, so far and so on and so forth, I think that this page that we're on now, I think would be a good place to send that traffic to. You could even drill further down. So I see benching under adjustable height desks in this navigation. I see benching desks, desk risers, L-shaped desks, and single desks. So there's all sorts of different products. Now, if I go and I do some research and I see that there's a lot of people who search specifically for single desks, a lot of people who search specifically for L-shaped standing desks, right? And I want to have really hyper-specific ad groups, which is not a bad idea. In this case, I don't necessarily think I would do it that way. I think I would just I would just have an ad group for adjustable height desks, but I could potentially turn any of these subcategories into campaigns as well. So I might have a campaign for desks and benching, or rather, let's say we were in the previous example, I might have a campaign for adjustable height desks, and then have an ad group for benching desks, desk risers, L-shaped desks, and single desks. The point is that I'm using my navigational structure on my website to inform my decisions about how I want to break out my campaigns in Google Ads, and it makes a lot of sense. Not only is it just a place to get good ideas, your navigation is usually structured. Well, it is structured in a way that there are pages, there's information structured in a certain way. How your navigation is structured is also how your information is structured. How your information is structured is how you're going to get landing pages for your ads. What area of your site, what page on your site are you going to be sending traffic to? So I want to make sure that I'm able to be specific enough that if somebody searches for something specific, I could send them to the right area of my site. That's obviously going to increase the usefulness of the information you provide those customers, and you're going to have a higher conversion rate. That's just basic common sense. So again, there's two ways I would potentially break it out up here. I would have a top-level campaign for furniture with ad groups below, ad groups for file cabinets, ad groups for tables, ad groups for long seating, so on and so forth. I might have a campaign for corporate branding and then an ad group for branded sets, notebooks, pens, desktop organization, new arrivals. But again, it's tricky because let's say I were to click into pens. There's ballpoint pens, there's gel ink, there's rollerball. So let's say somebody's searching for rollerball branded pens or so on and so forth. This gets into a big argument that a lot of people have, and I'm happy to sort of settle it right now, about how specific a page you want to send traffic to. So here's a good example that we just landed on with pens. Say somebody searches for corporate pens or corporate ballpoint pens, right? I could send them to this page that we're on now that just shows all pens, and then they would have to filter themselves into ballpoint, or I could literally click ballpoint and take this URL, and then I could have an ad group for ballpoint corporate pens. I think it would be a big mistake to drill down to this level of specificity. There's a concept in photography, and if any of you are professional photographers, don't hold me totally accountable for understanding this concept fully, or maybe I'm making a little bit of a stretch or a bad application, but this concept called closure. A photograph shouldn't give all the information about the scene. There should be a little bit left for the user to work, or the viewer rather, to work to figure out what's really the peripheral information contained in this shot. And it's a very powerful concept because that closure and having enough information where I don't need to work too hard to understand what's going on in the scene, but not having all the information where my brain on my own could fill in the missing pieces, it gives a person a sense of ownership of his perception. People are the same way when they're shopping for products. If I'm searching for something, I want to be able to find it myself. I don't want to have to be just drudging through a poorly designed site or a suboptimal layout. That's painful, and that's going to alienate your visitors. It's going to decrease your conversion rate. But to an extent, you don't need to be totally hyper-specific. So if I'm looking for gel ink corporate branded pens, you don't need to send me to a page that just has a gel ink corporate branded pen on it. You could send me to a page that talks about your branded pens, and then I could be more than happy to easily look at the conventional filter and click gel ink. In fact, I feel better about that. That's a very deep psychological concept at play called closure, where I'm actually deciding what I want. Meaning, it's like going to a restaurant and the waiter bringing you just one specific thing. I like to look at a menu of things. I like to choose my own item. I like to evaluate my options and then decide. Even if I did search, you might say that's not a good example because in the case of the waiter, how should the waiter know what you want? In this case, you specifically asked for gel rollerball branded pens. But yet, still, users on the internet and users on websites, and this is something which has been researched over and over again, when companies send users to these very minimal landing pages that have very little information and very little content, users will typically go and try to find the homepage and then navigate their way down to the product or service or information that they're looking for. And that's just something which is it's a really strong case against the overuse of individual landing pages. And I totally encourage standalone landing pages for PPC campaigns or whatever the campaign might be in certain cases and done right, and as long as you're giving enough information. But if it's too thin, then you're not allowing the user to make his own decision and to evaluate his own buying choice. And that's something you don't want to take away from the user. So I went on a tangent there for a little bit, but what I'm saying is that I think that the campaign structure here, it would be appropriate to have, let's say, corporate branding at the top as a campaign, and then just pens as an ad group, and users could then find whether they want gel ink, ballpoint, or rollerball pens. Themselves. That's exactly how I would structure it. So you see over here, and we don't need to go through every single example, but using the way your information is structured and the architecture of your website as a way to inform your campaigns, it's a really, really good idea. Now, for example, let's say Poppin only sells file cabinets on the West Coast for whatever reason. So then you'd have to have a separate campaign for file cabinets because you'd only want to show ads on the West Coast. This is in the United States. And this could apply for any location. And let's say they sold all their other, the example would only work providing that they sold all their other furniture categories across the whole country or the world. So then you would have to separate campaigns because of that. And we spoke about that in the previous lecture, that sometimes you're compelled from a technical perspective to have campaigns broken out in a certain way because you only have certain campaign settings that you're allowed. There are certain settings that are only controlled at the campaign level. So sometimes you're compelled that way, but most of the time when you're building out campaigns, you're doing it for organization. You're doing it so you could send users to the right page. You're doing it so you could organize your own data. That's an example for Poppin. Let's take a look quickly. Here's a client of ours, Karis Negotiating Seminar. In fact, I just had a meeting here in-house at Adventure Media with this client this morning. Incredible, incredible client. And this is a different company. They sell negotiating seminar registrations, and let's go ahead and see if we could figure out a potential search campaign structure for the account from their navigation. So at the very top, I see that there's seminars. I see train your team is a different type of seminar. There's a customized in-house program, block seat program, testimonials, who attends, and then find a seminar. Oh, interesting. There's seminars in different locations, right? So I could potentially have a campaign that talks about all negotiating seminars from any location. So anytime somebody searches for a negotiating seminar or whatever, I could show an ad. But what might be even better is if I break it out by state. So potentially, if they have seminars in 50 states, which they don't, but they have seminars in around 30 states, but about 100 different cities around the world. So I might have 100 campaigns, each campaign targeting that city that the seminar is in. And I'll be able to customize, right, two things. I'll be able to customize the ad text. I'll be able to say that instead of just get more information on negotiating seminars, get more information on negotiating seminars in Portland, the best-selling negotiating seminar in Baltimore, the best-selling negotiating seminar in Guadalajara, whatever it is, right? And send them to the right page that talks about the negotiating seminar in that location. So if I was dealing with a Portland campaign, I might have different ad groups targeting different themes of keywords all around negotiating seminars, or like business seminars or training or negotiating classes, right? I might set up my ad groups that way. But at the top level, because I see value in splitting it out by campaign, that would be potentially how I would structure an account like this for search campaigns. Now you might be wondering, and rightfully so, well, if you structure it only by those 100 cities, what about the rest of the world that is searching for a negotiating seminar and willing to travel to a city? They're not going to be able to see an ad if they search for negotiating seminars. Well, I would also have a separate search campaign that might be worldwide. It might have more conservative bids, right? Remember that another advantage of segmenting out campaigns and ad groups is that I could bid differently. And it's true, bidding, or the amount you're willing to bid, is not necessarily a technically compelling reason for why you would have campaigns set up, broken out, because you could control bids at the keyword and ad group level as well. But it might just be easier and simple to manage a large account if I want to bid more aggressively when people are searching for a negotiating seminar and they're in the city where I offer a negotiating seminar. And I might want to bid less aggressively in a worldwide campaign for anybody searching for a negotiating seminar. I might be willing to pay less for a click because that user is less valuable. Why? Because that person is less likely to travel to a different city to go to a negotiating seminar than a person inside a city that's looking for a negotiating seminar, and we offer one right in their backyard. So that's, again, another example how we would use a navigational structure and how the information is laid out on my website to start getting good ideas for campaign structure inside Google Ads. Let's take briefly another look at another client, the International Culinary Center, client of ours. Again, really fun, incredible client, really dynamic campaigns, exciting stuff, challenging account. But we see here, right away, I get some ideas for how I would structure out a Google Ads account. They have a New York campus, they have a California campus, but wow, look at it, so many different things they have. They have a New York campus, and they have professional culinary arts, professional pastry and baking, professional wine, continuing education, all different sorts of classes and courses that they offer. They offer, and under continuing education, they have all these different culinary entrepreneurship, food styling for media, right? There's tons of programs. What we've actually done is built out quite a monstrous account where we have lots of search campaigns that are structured for New York, lots of search campaigns that are structured for California, not just one, but even within New York and California, we have inside Manhattan, right around Soho, which is where their main flagship campus is, we have bids more aggressive. Then expanding out radius targeting to the tri-state area, bids a little bit less aggressive. Then, East Coast nationwide, even less aggressive than that. And separate campaigns within those location tiers for all the different programs. Now, you also have to recognize that certain programs represent different levels of value to the client. And certain service, and if you're in a service business or you're in a product business, you have the same thing. Every product you offer, every service you offer will have different levels of value to you, whether it's your profit margin is higher or lower or some other factor. You could also build out campaigns based on the value and the aggressiveness you want to bid for a specific product or service. And that's something that we've done for this account as well. The more expensive programs that generate more revenue for the client, we have in separate campaigns, and it's sort of a little bit like an algorithm. The closer you are to the campus, you have an more aggressive bid. And the higher revenue generating program you're searching for, the more aggressive the bid. So a searcher that's closest to the flagship location will have a very high bid, but even a higher bid if that person is also searching for a program that generates a large amount of revenue for the client. So it's a really cool system. And again, it's following the basic structure and hierarchy of how the information is laid out on the site. One more quick example, Sundance Now, owned by AMC Television Networks, a streaming service that sort of competes with Netflix. It's much smaller, it doesn't really compete head to head. This is more independent, more cerebral films, documentaries, a lot of original content. Let's take a look at their navigation real quick and see what ideas we get. Well, we see films, we see documentaries, series, collections. Well, all of a sudden, we are able to start getting a sense of how we want to break out our campaign. So we have a campaign for films, and within films, we have different sorts of campaigns that, and this is something we'll call the top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of the funnel. So bottom of the funnel might be people looking for specific titles, right? Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro, Stream Taxi Driver. We'll be able to send them to a very specific page. But let's say somebody's just looking for independent movies or independent films. More top of the funnel, less likely to buy from us today, less likely to sign up for a subscription today, but still we want to bid. When I could separate those out into their own campaign, into a separate campaign, then I'll be able to adjust my bids, adjust the location targeting, adjust the aggressiveness of other settings, and I'll be able to then log into Google Ads, download a report of the campaigns, or open up a campaign report inside Google Ads and get that information in such an organized, efficient way. And that's what I really want to impress upon you. It's so important that your data is clean. You don't want to have that much overlap between campaigns. You want to know that this campaign is, the data from this campaign is telling me this about my products and services. The data from this campaign is telling me this is the amount of clicks, this is the amount of impressions, this is the click-through rate, this is the cost per conversion, this is the volume of conversions, this is the return on ad spend for this product or service in this location, or whatever it may be. However you've decided to break it out, that's the main thing. Make sure you break it out in a way that is organized. And again, if you jump into the Facebook group, you'll get and this is one of the hardest things and one of the most overwhelming things about Google Ads. Figuring out how to structure an account. I deal with this every single day. We have lots of clients. I've managed hundreds of campaigns. I've built hundreds of accounts. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just saying that I've recognized that this is one of the hardest things because there's so many different ways to do it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And once you start learning about keywords and match types, then you have a whole new way of potentially structuring your ad groups. And then your ad groups are within your campaigns, and how do you account for overlap, and how do you use ad group level negative keywords and campaign level negative keywords and negative keyword lists? It gets overwhelming. So I would definitely suggest learn the basics, start off with your navigational structure on your website, but also use the Facebook group, speak to other students, throw out your different ideas, and you'll get, the more people collaborating, the more ideas you bounce off other people. Not a day goes by that I don't go out of my office and I pull over one of our team members or 10 of our team members and I say, listen, I'm trying to build this account. Let's just have a roundtable discussion about what the best ideas are. And you might not have the opportunity to do that, but the Facebook group and the support group affords you that opportunity. So just briefly to review, your navigational structure, your information architecture on your website is a good place to start. Now, if your navigational structure and your information architecture on the website is not good, and you should check out my course on landing page design, shameless plug over there, if you want to improve the navigational structure and the information architecture on your website. But if it is good and it's useful, that's a great place. It's the best place to start to get a sense of how you should build out your campaign, how you should build out your Google Ads account. And now that you have an understanding of the hierarchy of a Google Ads account, you understand the different concepts of campaign structure and how to go to your website and start just getting quick ideas through the navigation, you're in a good place to choose what you want your first campaign to be. And now that you have a good understanding of a Google Ads account hierarchy, you understand how to go to your website, take a look at your information architecture, and apply that to a strategy for building out campaigns, you're in a very good place to pick a campaign for your very first campaign that we're building now. And in the next lecture, we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to choose from Poppin what our first campaign is going to be. We're going to go and start building that campaign, going through each setting, and we're going to learn a ton. I look forward to seeing you guys very soon. I hope so far things are useful and you're starting getting a really clear fundamental sense of Google Ads. I know this is not advanced stuff, but you have no idea how valuable understanding the fundamentals are in being able to build on the more advanced topics as you go along. Trust me, just bear with me, give me some faith. I guarantee you'll be very, very happy and pleased that you stuck with it through some of maybe the more boring stuff, but hopefully we're keeping this very, very interesting as we go along. I will see you guys very shortly in the very next lecture.